Hello DAZN fans and fans of football as well. I am your host Adam Monk and you're watching another episode of Football's Hottest Takes. Yes, a lot has happened since the last episode of Hottest Takes. The Champions League knockouts have progressed to the semi-final stage with 4 teams left. The title race has hotted up as well, with now City favourites and front runners for the title. And, Man United are still the same. But nonetheless, we've got 3 more hot takes for you today. So without further ado, let's jump in. Yes, now, little warning, take what I'm about to say with a pinch of salt, because in the last episode I said Atletico Madrid will get to the Champions League final because they're so good defensively, and then they decided to concede 5 goals over 2 legs to Borussia Dortmund, so, take what I'm about to say with a pinch of salt. However, firstly, let's talk about Real Madrid. Now, I'm a Manchester City fan, and firstly, I'm not bitter. No, actually, I am. They played like Stoke City at the Etihad, and were very lucky to progress. If it went for a De Bruyne, basically open net miss, and whatever that penalty was from Bernardo Silva, it was almost like a mark of respect. The penalty was that bad. It was like, do you know what, lads, go through to the next round. But City could not find a way against Real Madrid after they basically parked the bus at the Etihad. And if you look at 2 of the goals that Real Madrid scored at the Bernabeu, they were deflected strikes, particularly Camavinga's in the first half, which was a really wicked deflection beating Ortega. So Madrid, obviously they've got the pedigree and the heritage and a bit of almost voodoo that gets them through these rounds in the competition, but they weren't that good over the 2 legs, and I can say that as a City fan, but also as a neutral. Honestly, I'm not bitter. So this isn't me saying Bayern will win the Champions League because Real Madrid are bad. I'm not saying that at all. But what I don't think Real Madrid are is very tactically astute. I think they've got a lot of X-Factor players like Vinny Jr., Jude Bellingham, Rodrigo scores important goals for them as well. Of course, a solid midfield with the likes of Cruz, Camavinga, Valverde, Tchouaméni, these kind of players. They got a very strong team, but it's a very individualistic team. And Jude Bellingham even said this in his post-match interview after the game at the Etihad, that Ancelotti lets them play with freedom and almost on a whim. And I don't think this is good enough to get Madrid through every single round against teams who I think are more tactically astute. Now, Bayern Munich, of course, haven't had the best season in the Bundesliga. That would be an understatement, but what Thomas Tuchel is a good tournament manager. He sets his sides up very well defensively and limits the opposition while sort of maximising or optimising his own team's offensive play. And you only have to look at the last round when Bayern Munich played Arsenal, who were the current highest scorers in the Premier League. They limited Arsenal to scoring 2 at the Emirates and then none at the Allianz. So conceding 2 to this current Arsenal side shows that Bayern Munich are a very, very defensively astute side. And if they can tighten up against Real Madrid, who at the moment I don't actually think are as good a team as Arsenal, I fancy Bayern Munich to progress. And of course, the start of this hot take was about Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane will consequently win the final and therefore his first ever trophy, which has been a long time coming to say the least. But look, I do acknowledge the fact that if Carlo Ancelotti is losing this game, he could just go, I can't do it, but raise his eyebrow, and then the rest of the team just turn up and score goals on a whim like it's nothing. So that's what Real Madrid do, and they may well do it again, but I am sick of it, and I do want Bayern Munich to go through. I'd love an all-German final, and I think they will. I've got a feeling that the league performances have been that disappointing in a sort of counterintuitive way. It's going to G them up, and they're going to do it. So, Harry, I believe in you. You're going to get your first trophy, and it's going to be before the Euros, and you're going to go in there firing on all cylinders. So, yeah, good luck. Yeah, the UEFA coefficients for the extra Champions League spots next season. I'm not saying I don't understand it, but I don't really agree with it. I think it's idiotic. So just to run it through with you, it says here, Italy and Germany currently have the highest 23-24 association club coefficients, with Italy top and Germany second. So they are the countries as it stands who are getting these extra slots for their teams in the Champions League next year. But this is what gets me right. I'm not sure quite how Italy have racked up so many points, and I don't think that there's any discrepancy between the Conference League, Europa League and Champions League in terms of scoring points for the coefficient, which is where I have a problem. Because if you look at the Champions League semi-finals now, there's no Italian teams. There was no Italian teams in the quarter-finals of the Champions League. And of course, in the last 16, you had Inter and Napoli going out. Now, I know that 7 English clubs got knocked out of Europe at the quarter-final stage across various competitions, which is embarrassing in itself. But it's further progression, especially in the Champions League, which in my opinion should count for more coefficient points towards England. And this isn't a plea to try and get a 5th English club in. I just think it's a bit of a weird way that UEFA have gone around this. So the point I'm basically making for this hot take is that further progression in the Champions League should count for more than further progression in the Europa League or Conference and so on and so forth. And yeah, I just don't think there's been enough Italian teams progressing far to merit being highest in the coefficient rankings. I know there's 3, but there's 2 in Europa and 1 in the Conference League. And you've got 2 German clubs in the Champions League semi-final who are obviously second in the coefficient. But I think personally that should bump up, you know, the merit of the German league, if we're going to work off a meritocracy, higher than the Italian league. So I hope that made sense, but I just don't quite agree with the way that UEFA are doing this coefficient, and I don't think Italy should necessarily be top of it on performance. Yeah, now if you're living in the UK, you might have noticed that the weather's been getting a little bit warmer, and that's actually not because we're approaching summer, it's because this take is that hot. Now, if you look at the form books here, Luton have won 1 in 5, and then Forest have won 1 and drawn 2, and Burnley have won their most recent game and then drawn 3. But I think the context behind why I think Burnley's going to stay up is because they've recently changed who plays between the sticks. Now, in the Championship last season, when they tore it to shreds and won the league, Aro Muric was between the sticks, and then they signed James Trafford from Manchester City for 12 million in the summer, and a lot of eyebrows were raised. It was a young goalkeeper. Will he have the experience to live with the Premier League at such a young age when he's never played in it before? And I think the answer to that was probably no, and I'm not really saying James Trafford isn't good enough to one day be ready for the Premier League, but he's had a torrid time this season. And since Aro Muric has come back into the team, just like that, Burnley have stopped leaking as many goals. And they've actually only conceded 6 in the last 5, which isn't bad for a relegation fighting team if you contextualise it in that sense. So it's really tightened up. And also what you've got to think is that Vincent Kompany almost gutted the squad that got him promoted, which maybe wasn't the wisest thing to do, but he sold an awful lot of players and brought in an awful lot of young players, mainly from the Belgian league, players that he was familiar with, into the team, which is going to take the team some time to gel. And it looks like they're slowly starting to get there, just scoring 4 at Sheffield United last weekend. Now, I know it's Sheffield United, but still 4 goals in the Premier League is no mean feat. And these are the last 4 games that Burnley have got left to play, and you can see the one that's on the horizon is Manchester United away, which is a nice and easy start. They should win that one. No, seriously, they probably should. I mean, did you see what Coventry did to them? And then they're back at home against Newcastle, which you would say is a tricky game on paper, but Newcastle might not have that much to play for by that time in the season, so maybe they can get a result there. I'd back them to at least maybe just concede 1 goal and maybe try and score 2, a low-scoring win, that kind of game. Then Tottenham away, I would suggest that that's the one that they can get away with losing. Obviously, Tottenham will be still chasing that 4th spot by then, so that's going to be a very, very tricky game. But we know what Tottenham can do. They can also, in the same breath, just lose to anyone. So if Burnley are up for it, they've got a fighting chance. And then the big one, the final day, is against Nottingham Forest. And this is where I think Burnley will stay up. I think that Luton will go down. I don't think they've got quite enough. I think they made a bloody good fight of it, don't get me wrong. But I think it'll be Forest and Burnley, maybe 1-2 points apart, come the final day. And with that said, Burnley at home, the home crowd, Nottingham Forest having to fight for their lives. I think Burnley are going to get over the line. I'm saying it now. I'm calling it. Burnley will stay up. Anyway, guys, there we go. That is my hot takes for the last couple of weeks. I'll be back again in another couple of weeks with some more when some more football has been played. But I hope they were some palatable hot takes, and at least one of them will probably come true. And I won't have another stinker, hopefully, like the Atletico Madrid one the other week. But nonetheless, I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. I've been Adam Monk. Do not forget to subscribe to DAZN Sport down below. We'd really appreciate that. Take care. I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.